Stand by for a transmission from DX Central. This broadcast is not a test. To confirm reception, please tune your radio to any AM or FM frequency and report your observations during this transmission. Again, this is not a test.
DX Central Live is brought to you in part by...
Since 1933, the National Radio Club has been serving AMDXers while providing some of the most in-depth information in the hobby. From the annual NRC AM log, a must-have reference for domestic station information, to antenna design reference manuals, and of course, the DX News Member Bulletin, which is filled with station information updates, domestic and international loggings, and a whole lot more. Become a member today. For more information, log on to nationalradioclub.org. That's nationalradioclub.org. While the HF bands can be filled with entertaining and intriguing transmissions, how do you know when and where to look? Let Teague Publishing's Global Radio Guide lead the way. In addition to its exhaustive list of time and frequency for international broadcasters, radio hobby icon Gail Van Horn brings you equipment reviews, an SDR buyer's guide, feature articles, and more. Pick up your copy today. Visit teakpublishing.com for more information. That's teakpublishing.com. From the pages of its DX Monitor member bulletin, members of the International Radio Club of America share their domestic and international AM/DX loggings. In its Mexican log, a wealth of information can be found of stations from south of the border. Technical guides, sunrise, sunset maps, and more make the IRCA a must-join for any AM/DXer. For more information, log on to ircaonline.org. That's ircaonline.org.
Through crashes of static in quiet hours, we listen. In languages we can scarcely understand, and of places we have only visited in our dreams, we listen. Incessantly, we perfect our array of aerials, receivers, and resources. We refine our skills and our techniques so that we might listen. We are DX Central, and we're all about radio. Visit us at dxcentralonline.com or check us out on YouTube. Search DX Central.
Keep up with DX Central. Follow us on Twitter at DX Central.
From the Gulf South
To your corner of the world.
this is DX Central Live.
Now here's your host, Lloyd Van Horn.
It's DX Central Live from the North Shore Studios here in Mandeville, Louisiana. Good evening, my friends. Happy Friday to you. And hopefully you're having yourself a great week of DX. It's been an interesting one here. We turned the Kiwi Kaz from south to north. And oh, the gems that awaited us. Oh, the gems that awaited us on that one. So we're going to talk about that tonight. About some of the amazing DX that came in off the north end of that Kaz antenna on the Kiwi. But we got some big stuff to talk about tonight. We've got an eclipse heading our way, for a lot of us at least. And that's going to potentially impact, the AM broadcast band. And, thanks, Bill. And potentially give some of us, at least, some interesting conditions for a little bit on Monday. So we're going to talk a bit about that. We put a video out last week about this, and we're going to talk a bit more about that tonight and kind of what to expect. We're also going to talk about, just in general, AM propagation, because we're heading into a different phase of the DX season for AM. I'm not one of those people that subscribe, like a lot of folks do, to this notion that the DX season for AM runs from like September to April or May and then it's done, right? I don't subscribe to that theory. I think there's a different phase. I liken it to, for any of our ham radio operators who are in here, or shortwave DXers who are watching, you might kind of recognize this theory. Something my dad taught me a long time ago. When we were at the solar minimum, right? And so solar flares and solar, sunspots and solar flux and things like that were all down low. We had a spotless sun for a while and things like that. When that kind of stuff is happening, the upper end of the HF band is going to be pretty dead. There's not going to be a lot of activity there because the propagation is not very helpful there. But what that does mean is that the lower bands like 160 and 80 and 40 are going to be a lot quieter. So you can really spend some time down there down low and try to get some stuff going and see if you can kind of work those bands. Because once the swing happens and we get that swing back up again like we always do, when we get the solar maximum, we are now heading towards, right? What's happening? Well, the lower bands are getting noisier and the upper bands are getting a little more active. We see more activity in 10 meters and 12 meters and things like that now because we're heading towards the solar maximum. I think the exact same thing about AM. During the summer, it's quieter, and so we have a chance to hear more things of a certain type, right? We have a chance to get some weaker signals that might normally be hidden by the noise and things like that. Summertime is a great time, especially on like the graveyarders, to get stations that are a little bit closer into you that maybe are covered up by further stations in the winter. It's a great time to do some sunset and sunrise DX because you're going to have conditions that aren't replicated any other time of the year. And it's also a really great time for trans-equatorial propagation. So we're going to talk about that tonight. We're going to talk about AM propagation in general, especially as it relates to the eclipse, but just kind of in general and kind of as we begin to transition out of this like quiet phase of AM DXing into a more noisy phase and kind of what we can do about that, what some tools and tricks and things like that. So we'll talk about that tonight. And we're also going to talk about you and what you've been hearing. We're going to talk about your DX because we got our shout out submission form that I hope you guys are all taking advantage of and sending in. Looks like quite a few already are. I'm going to put the link in the chat here real quick, but this will give you a chance to let us know what you've been hearing, your countries, states, new countries, new states, new logs, new Canadian provinces, new Louisiana stations, new Wisconsin stations. We have something for that. If you hit a goal or a milestone or just had something cool like some new gear, new antennas. I think, Dennis put up a new CAS this week, new East-West CAS, and he's already seeing some fruits from that labor. So let us know what you've been doing in the last week since last we met, and we'll give you a shout out here on the air, and we'll blow that horn of victory in your honor. If you had any moments like I did this week where you kind of was like, I screwed up, you let us know that too. We can learn together, right? I had some of those, and I'll share some of those this week. All right. So before we get too far in, we are on week 14 right now of our medium wave frequency challenge. We've been sitting on 1060 to 1090, and I know last week when we were here, we had the Kiwi CAS antenna pointed down south. We heard Peru last week. We heard El Salvador last week for a new El Salvadorian that I'd never heard before on 1080. I think it was 1080, wasn't it? Yeah, I think so. Heard that last week for the first time, and then Peru made a return visit right on 1090 that we hadn't heard them in a while, but the new south antenna brought them in. So that was nice to get some of those countries back in. You guys know I'm a big Latin DX aficionado. And so, so looking through, I don't see a lot of folks getting any of those this week, unfortunately. I was hoping some folks might have a chance to get down south, at least in maybe Colombia, something like that. But there are quite a few who are into Mexico and Cuba this week, so sweet. But overall, it was a pretty decent week, I think, for most everybody, from what I'm seeing in the numbers. I know Sean had a great week. He's heard, what was it? He was at 28 now. I think that's your highest count that I've seen you put together so far this season, Sean. I know you're watching on the replay. Jacob had another great week. Of course, Barry had another great week from Tennessee. So, and Dennis as well. So, yeah, I think it's a pretty good week overall. That frequency range is a little tough. There's some things about it that are challenging. Like the IBOC hash on 1090. There's some dominant stations on some of the frequencies that can make it kind of difficult, things like that. So yeah, I think it definitely pushed our abilities a little bit this week to kind of squeeze out some good DX, but I think a lot of you were able to do just that. So kudos and congratulations. All right, so you guys know what we do here. We do some live DX on Friday nights to get us started. So this hour of live DX is brought to you by the folks at the National Radio Club. NationalRadioClub.org is the website you can go to for more information about becoming a member, which I hope that every single one of you who are watching have already done. We have a couple of different antenna and SDR combos to work with tonight. We have our Kiwi CAS pointing north right now. We'll be starting off with that one. We've also got the Perseus over here with our Superloops. We've got it on the east-west Superloop right now. Might be a little noisy. It's a little shorter, and so it can be a little noisy this time of the night. And then we've also got our AirSpy HF Plus Discovery sitting over here with another Superloop. This is the backyard Superloop at 15 degrees. We're heading north on all of our antennas right now, so that's where we're looking at. And guess what? It's that time already. Top of the hour alert means we are looking for new stations to ID themselves on the AM bands, as we have all of our little USB devices popping up here. Let's go ahead and get the AirSpy out of the way. Let's start off with the, because we were recording on the Perseus over here on Jaguar software, so we'll start off with the Kiwi CAS and see what we got on 1060, as we are looking up to the north on this one right now. Hey, mamacita. David, you and I are in agreement on that one. The DX season, it never ends. AM, even FM, there's always something to be found. We're going to be 83% here on Monday, but I think it's going to be supposed to be super cloudy, maybe even a little rain, so I don't think we're going to see anything. Maybe the ionosphere will cooperate. Go 1070.
Day. And I'll be back at 3 o'clock with The Pulse this Sunday.
1080.
And then, of course,
traffic and weather together on the 8th. Julie Rogers.
Well, Beltway, we're looking a little bit
KRLD Dallas.
The Galloway accident at 4th because of that, but that's going to be slow to Spring Valley, 35 east south for Louisville. Once again, if you're trying to connect over to the Bush Turnpike, the right lane.
1090 KAAY. Little Rock. That's how loud they are. I mean, I'm pointing right at them, but still. Let's go back to 1060. That had a little option here for us. Maybe get something. So we're not missing anything on those other frequencies. That's what I thought. You just cut Ohio. The ILB. Just had an idea from them. That's a new one for us. Catholic radio ID that was in there weak. Kilowatt daytime. Oh, it's in Colorado. Yeah, he mentioned Canton and Akron. It's in Canton, but he did mention Akron in the ID. I think my dog sees squirrels outside. She's flipping out. We don't get many Ohio stations here, though. $869 miles. Seeing if we're catching it coming out of the break, out of the network break. There was something in there. Heard a 3.5. I'm guessing that's Waverly. With the format now, going to classic rock sounding music. Willow wants to be on the air, don't you? You put me on the stream, you're gonna love it. You've already had your food. You want a treat? word, didn't I? All right, so there we go. We got a new station out of Ohio for us here, at least, WILB, out of Canton, Ohio, with Catholic Radio, Living Bread radio there, and so that's a new one for us. That puts us up at 917, I want to say it was. 917 now here in Mandeville. So we're knocking on 1,000. We're getting there, getting close. So let's go ahead and take a quick break. I'm gonna go give this dog something to kind of calm her down and chill her out a little bit, because she's like, bugging out. She wants some attention. So I'm gonna give her something to occupy her time, and then when we come back, we're gonna talk Eclipse. We're gonna talk about your shout outs and a whole lot more. So don't go anywhere, my friends. More DX Central Live is heading your way right after this.
DX Central, because we're all about radio. Visit us at dxcentralonline.com or check us out on YouTube. Search DX Central. DX Central Live is brought to you in part by...
Since 1933, the National Radio Club has been serving AMDXers while providing some of the most in-depth information in the hobby. From the annual NRC AM log, a must-have reference for domestic station information, to antenna design reference manuals, and of course, the DX News Member Bulletin, which is filled with station information updates, domestic and international loggings, and a whole lot more. Become a member today. For more information, log on to nationalradioclub.org. That's nationalradioclub.org. While the HF bands can be filled with entertaining and intriguing transmissions, how do you know when and where to look? Let Teague Publishing's Global Radio Guide lead the way. In addition to its exhaustive list of time and frequency for international broadcasters, radio hobby icon Gail Van Horn brings you equipment reviews, an SDR buyer's guide, feature articles, and more. Pick up your copy today. Visit teaguepublishing.com for more information. That's teaguepublishing.com. From the pages of its DX Monitor Member Bulletin, members of the International Radio Club of America share their domestic and international AMDX loggings. In its Mexican log, a wealth of information can be found of stations from south of the border. Technical guides, sunrise, sunset maps, and more make the IRCA a must-join for any AMDXer. For more information, log on to ircaonline.org. That's ircaonline.org.
Through crashes of static in quiet hours, we listen. In languages we can scarcely understand, and of places we have only visited in our dreams, we listen. Incessantly, we perfect our array of aerials, receivers, and resources. We refine our skills and our techniques so that we might listen. We are DX Central, and we're all about radio. Visit us at dxcentralonline.com or check us out on YouTube. Search DX Central.
Keep up with DX Central. Follow us on Twitter at DX Central.
From the DX Central North Shore Studios, this is DXC Live. Now here's your host, Lloyd Van Horn.
Now let's try this again. This is DX Central Live from the North Shore Studios here in Mandeville, Louisiana. As we wind down Season 4 here, heading down to, including tonight, 5 weeks. 4 more shows after tonight. And then we'll take a quick break. We'll just kind of put a little pin in things, and then we'll prepare to come back in the fall again, as we usually do. And in the interim, there'll be a little bit of a change here. Not a drastic change. I mean, the overall layout in here in North Shore Studios will be the same. It'll be kind of this U shape that I have here with my monitors up against this wall because there's really nowhere else to put them. Desk over here and a desk over here. But what's on some of this might move around a little bit, and I got some things I want to do, some more lighting and some different things. So going to be doing some work on the shack here once we get to the end of the season. So probably May 4th. We end up May 3rd will be our last show. May 4th, everything is coming out of the room. We're going to tear it down, clear it out, and do some work on the shack here and get it into a freshening up a little bit, as it were. I've got my little shopping list back here I've been making about what I need to get. Already have started working on that a little bit and getting a couple things on order to make sure that it'll all be here for me in May when the time comes. I am going to move some stuff around, though, so at least I'll still have the Kiwi for AMDX, so I can still DX off the Kiwi. And we will be also moving our auto logger to another room so that the auto logger can remain going, so that if there are any e-skip or Tropo openings, hopefully we don't miss it entirely. We'll get something out of it. So that's good. All right, so let's before we get into our main topic tonight, which is the eclipse, I do want to spend some time on some shout outs. You guys know we like to do those here at DX Central Live. We like to help blow the horn of victory and make sure you guys get recognition for the hard work that you've put behind the dials, or the mouse, as it were, this week in your week of DX, and celebrate any accomplishments you might have achieved. New stations logged, new countries, new states, new Canadian provinces, and so forth. Because, you know, we do like to let the moose loose from time to time. I don't know if we have anybody who's done anything with that this week, but, you know, let's hope. So we have a submission form. That way, if you want to get your submissions in for shout-outs, you want to be heard, you want to be recognized, we have a place for you to do that. I'm going to copy that link right now and throw it into the chat. Come on. Chat. Oh, wow. It just, all the links just went in all at once. So let's delete that and then hit Control V and then boop. There we go. There is the chat link. Carl's over here talking about recording during the eclipse. We're actually going to talk about that tonight. We're going to talk about how to set up various pieces of software to record during the eclipse. SDR Sharp and Console being the chief among those. We'll also briefly touch on Perseus and the Jaguar software for Perseus, and how to use those to record the AM band or a portion of it or whatever you need to do for the eclipse. We're going to talk about that and how to set that up, make sure it all goes off without a hitch, so that you don't miss any DX. We're going to talk about that here in a little bit. So put the shout out form in the link in the chat, so you can click on that bad boy and get your shout outs in. And what do I mean by shout outs? Well, let's go ahead and get started with some of those, shall we? Speaking of WILB in Canton, we had a new log for that one from our friend Dennis. He'll start us off here this week. Dennis Bannister from Ladysmith, Virginia, and his big, beautiful new CAS antenna, his east-west CAS antenna, is already kicking some butt for him. He did hear WILB in Canton, Ohio. He also got WKNG in Tallapoosa, Georgia on 1060. His first real big log, he heard a couple of stations in the Carolinas on the east-west CAS, but his first one kind of proving concept of the CAS for him came from 1080 KRLD in Dallas, Texas, 1,128 miles from Virginia, and WOKT in Cannonsburg, Pennsylvania. Some more stuff that came in for Dennis as well. 1080 WHGG in Kingsport, Tennessee, also made an appearance this week for Dennis. So, for all those new logs, yes, sir. We blow the horn of victory and we get you some log sawing going on, my friend. Good job with some new logs, and really looking forward to seeing what else that CAS can get for you, man. I really am. Hopefully you can get some good stuff. Sean, next up on our list. I know he's not watching with us live right now. He's out on date night tonight. But he'll be watching the replay here, I believe. So, Sean got 29 logs for this week's challenge. That's the most number of unique stations he's ever heard for a challenge week. 9 of those were new for him, including XERDO 1060 in Mexico for a New Mexican state. KRCN 1060 Longmont, Colorado. WBAL 1090 Baltimore. WNCT 1070 Greenville, North Carolina. KFTI 1070 Wichita. WTNK on 1090 out of Hartsville, Tennessee. It's a kilowatt station on that one. WKAC 1080 Athens, Alabama. WDIA 1070 Memphis. And WKMQ 1060 in Tupelo, 960 watts for them. Also heard WNLR 1150 in Churchville, Virginia. Surprisingly loud at 1100 Zulu with their 2500 watts. So we got a couple things to do here for you. Let's start off with the logs and get those out of the way. But he also got himself a new Estado de Mexico. Yes, sir. All right. Let's see. Good job, Sean, my friend. Keegan, Boot Crew North. Always good for some good FMDX from Arkansas here. Well, what did Keegan get this week? On March 30th, got 104.3 KQFX in Borger, Texas. La Poderosa, 96.1 and 104.3 at 10:13 a.m. It's a 409-mile catch. Had some good tropo this last week. It was really nice. Got a little bit of that here. I'll talk about that here in a minute because I did get some new stuff there. 92.3 KIJN in Farewell, Texas. Legal ID 11:05 a.m. 488 miles. That's also new for him. And 92.3 KNFM in Midland, Texas. Lone Star 92.3 at 11:48 a.m. for 533 miles. So, my friend, for those new FM logs, good job! So taking advantage of some of that tropo. I don't care. I know it's tropo. I know. Taking advantage of some of that tropo that was hitting around here and down the Gulf Coast this week. Our friend Keegan, Boot Crew North. Got a couple more here we'll do, and then we'll save some more for round 2. Let's do our friend Jacob up and north of us in Minnesota, way up north of us. And the state of Minnesota has got that awesome Kiwi SDR up there that has helped me a couple times getting some new ones up that different direction, and we swap stuff out every once in a while. More on that later, because he helped me out big time this week. A few new logs this week. 1080 WTIC Hartford, Connecticut with their top of the hour 4-note da-da-da-da trumpet fanfare, and 1090 WBAL Baltimore, Maryland, heard with a clear ID and Baltimore area news. These two I've been chasing for quite a while. Another surprise was last night with 1500 WAKE in Hobart, Indiana. Heard in the 6 seconds that KSTP drops off the air to switch from their day tower to their night array, matched to a Northern Indiana Kiwi SDR and their online stream. WAKE recently came back on the air, now simulcasting 1370 WLTH. So some new ones in there. I'm assuming Connecticut was not a new state for you. I think I've seen you mention that you've heard Connecticut before, Jacob. Correct me if I'm wrong in the chat, but I think I've heard you mention that you've got Connecticut before. So if you have not, if that was a new state, then let me know and I'll get you the fireworks. But we're going to at least get you a nice bit of some log sawing here. Yes, sir. No new states. Okay. No worries. We'll save the fireworks. Save the fireworks. Because we know we're going to need them later on. And one more for this round, and then we'll pick back up with our friend Carl in round 2. Carl had himself a week this week with some AM and some FM. So we're going to talk a bit about that and some new gear that he's got himself as well. Because he's been doing some AM and FMDX on some new gear. We got a couple things to talk about there for Carl. But before we get to that in round 2, we're going to recognize our friend John in Delaware. The challenge frequencies were a bust. But one new one for him this week was 1340 WKSN in Jamestown, New York, with Cleveland Guardians baseball. That's log number 1270. Anytime you can put a new one in the logbook, that's a good one in my book, man. Congratulations to John in Delaware for the new one. There's a bug in the shack. All right, so that is going to take care of round one of our shout-out. So you still have time if you didn't get your shout-out in, no worries. You can still get yours in. Round two will be coming up in the next hour. And, of course, we'll be doing hours after into the third hour there after 9 o'clock local time here. We'll be doing hours, our AM and our FM catches this week, because we had ourselves a week as well. Haven't had a week like this in a bit. It was a really, really good one. All right, let's talk eclipse. We got a total solar eclipse heading for the United States here from basically Mexico up to Maine, cutting across the United States. And I did a video this week, and I'm going to play it here in a few minutes. It's a short one. It's it's like 7 minutes long, so it won't take too long. It'll explain some of the basic dynamics of some of the propagation we're going to be talking about here in a few minutes. And we're going to go a little bit deeper dive into some of that. Actually, I want to do this. Okay. So we're going to play this video real quick and talk a bit after it's completed here about the solar eclipse and what to expect from an AM perspective. And we're going to use that as a kind of a springboard to talk about AM propagation as well. We're going to talk a bit about this hour and the next hour. We're going to talk a bit about AM propagation, about what to expect as we head deep into spring and into the summertime, and some things that you might want to try, because I'm telling you, the AM season does not end on May 1st or anything like that. A lot of people like to think it does. Yes, it gets harder. Yes, you have more noise and static and things like that. It's not easy, and I am guilty of this. The last 3 years, I haven't done hardly any summertime AMDX, but that's more because A, FM season was jumping, and B, I just didn't have time. But I really, really want to devote this summer some time to sit down and do some really good AMDX, especially looking to the south. So we're going to talk about that here in a bit. But first, we are going to
open your car door.
Nope, we're not going to teach you how to open your car door. We're going to teach you what to expect as we head into our solar eclipse. This is just a very high level, very basic understanding of what the mechanics are behind AM propagation during a solar eclipse. Okay, so if you've already watched this, go get yourself a cup of coffee or whatever, come back in about 6 minutes. If you haven't watched this would be a great introduction for you about what to generally expect in the eclipse. And then when we come back, we're going to talk a bit about using your SDR software to record during the eclipse and make sure that you don't miss any DX. So let's go ahead and start off here first with our footage from YouTube. I have it muted. That's why you don't hear anything. It looked like I was talking, but I wasn't. This is muted. On Monday, April the 8th, millions of Americans will put on their sun-safe glasses. They'll point their eyes to the sky and take in the beauty and wonder of a once-in-a-lifetime experience, a total solar eclipse. But what if I told you that your eyes aren't the only way for you to observe the eclipse? Today on Radio 101, we're going to tell you how an ordinary AM radio just like this one may be all that you need to experience this historic event. Let's tune in. Radio 101. Our sun has a profound effect on the world around us. Quite simply, life as we know it wouldn't exist without it. But did you know that the sun's influence can extend to things like radio waves? While not all radio waves are, those in the medium wave or AM radio band are strongly influenced by the interaction of solar radiation with the upper regions of our atmosphere every single day. And it is because of that interaction that our upcoming solar eclipse on April the 8th gives us a great chance to directly observe the solar influence of AM radio signals. First, a quick lesson on exactly how radio waves can be influenced by our sun. It all has to do with the upper reaches of our atmosphere in an area called the ionosphere. The ionosphere sits somewhere between about 80 and 600 kilometers above the surface of our planet, and it contains layers of electrons. And these layers are created by ionization from solar radiation. There are multiple layers that form every single day.
and some of these allow for reflection of radio waves back down to Earth, enabling long-distance reception of radio signals. One of these layers, the D layer, actually absorbs radio signals that are transmitted by AM radio stations. Now, it's only present during the day when the solar radiation is at its peak of influence on our ionosphere. At night, this layer disappears and allows those same AM radio signals to reach higher into the ionosphere and reflect back down to Earth. This is why AM radio signals travel much further at night than they do during the day. Without the D layer there to absorb these signals, AM radio stations can be heard from listeners hundreds, even thousands of miles away. So what does that mean for the upcoming eclipse? Well, as the Earth rotates and the sun rises in the morning, it begins the process of forming this D layer. And it's not something that happens all at once or uniformly. You'll have pockets of the D layer that are thicker and more robust, other areas where it's thinner, and other areas where it doesn't even form at all until later in the day. The inverse is actually what happens in the evening as the sun sets. When the sun disappears over the horizon, it begins the process of breaking down the D layer. And again, this doesn't happen all at once or uniformly. This results in little pockets or gaps where AM radio stations are able to break through, get to the upper layers of the ionosphere, and then reflect back down to listeners at much greater distances. And that will be the science at work during our eclipse on April the 8th. As the moon slowly begins to pass between the Earth and the sun, it will block out more and more solar radiation and kickstart that exact same process that we see every evening of breaking down the D layer. This will allow for those pockets and gaps in the D layer to form and allow for some AM radio signals to break through and reflect off the upper levels of the ionosphere and allow for listeners at much further distances to hear them during the daytime than they normally would be able to do. But that's only part of what makes this eclipse a unique experience for AM radio listeners. Since, as we learned earlier, AM radio signals travel further at night than they do during the day, a lot of stations in the United States actually have to power down or change their antenna pattern, or in some cases even sign off entirely at night in order to protect from causing interference from other radio stations. This usually happens during that same time that the D layer is in process of breaking down. And if the timing is right, this actually allows listeners to be able to catch these stations before they make their daily changes. During the eclipse, however, there will be no powering down. No antenna pattern changes, no signing off. These stations will continue to operate at their full daytime power. That means since timing is no longer an issue, as the eclipse moves along, more and more of the D layer begins to break down, and that will allow more people from greater distances to hear these stations than would normally be possible during a normal day. Now, the effect of the eclipse will obviously be greatest for those who live within the path of totality. They'll have the greatest amount of attenuation of solar radiation and the greatest amount of breakdown of that D layer of the atmosphere. But even those who are just outside of the totality path should experience at least some effect on their local AM radio band. Now, as I said earlier, not all radio waves are impacted in the same way by the sun's radiation. And because of this and some other characteristics, you actually won't notice during the eclipse any impact whatsoever on your local FM band. The AM band, though, should give most listeners a chance to hear some radio stations that you might not normally be able to pick up. So before you put on your sun-safe glasses and look to the sky, you may want to make sure you bring an AM radio with you. Turn it on and listen for some frequencies that don't have any stations on them. And then as the eclipse moves along, tune to those frequencies and listen as the signals begin to fill the band. And try to see if you can identify some of those stations and where they're located, and be sure to let us know down in the comments below of some of your best catches. If you want to learn more about the hobby of listening for distant AM and FM radio stations, it's also called DXing, be sure to check out our other videos right here on the channel. If you found this video to be helpful, we would appreciate a thumbs up, and a comment is always helpful to ensure our videos are able to reach more interested viewers. And be sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon. Okay, y'all know about that stuff. Anyway, so that is the basics of what we're talking about here when we talk about this upcoming solar eclipse. What's going to be happening is it's going to kind of mirror a lot of what happens in the afternoon, the evenings, when the D layer breaks down as the sun goes off to the side, over the horizon, and you have less of that
solar radiation getting to the ionosphere directly above us here in the U.S. As that sun crosses the horizon, it completely goes away, and that D layer just starts really breaking down and breaking down. Well, the same kind of mechanics will be happening on a little bit different scale during the eclipse. It's not going to be as long, right? So we're not talking about a period of time as long as a typical sunset period would be, where you have that sun setting and those angles getting lower and lower and lower towards the horizon. And so less and less and less and less solar radiation is coming through and ionizing the ionosphere. So the timing won't be as long. It's going to be a little quicker. But you will have a more instantaneous flash of, especially if you're in that path of totality, a more instantaneous flash of complete blockage, right? So it's going to be a little interesting. I think some folks did some testing. I wasn't using SDRs in 2017 when I was in Charleston. I wish I had been. That would have been a great experiment for me to do because I was in the path of totality, but I wasn't doing SDRs yet. So I can't tell you what we experienced down there at the time, but I can tell you I will be doing that here. But I've seen some people talk about hearing things during totality that they normally would not be able to hear, even during like their normal sunsets. Because maybe, again, you have stations that normally would be signing off or powering down or changing their antenna patterns. So during their sunset, they can't catch those. Well, that's not going to happen here. Those stations are going to continue to broadcast at their full power, their full antenna daytime pattern. So that will introduce some interesting variables as well. So what do you need to do to be able to DX the eclipse? Well, first off, I'm going to say this again. If you live in the path of totality and you have a chance to go outside and with your sun-safe glasses, watch this eclipse, please make sure you do so. Don't miss this because of DX, okay? DX is going to come and go. You're going to have opportunities to catch stations later on. But watching a total eclipse is an amazing experience. I'm really, really, really happy I got to do this in 2017. We're only going to be at 83% here, so visually, plus with the clouds and storms and rain and stuff, it's not going to be all that impressive here. So if you have cooperative weather, right, no clouds, you have a clear sky, and you live in that path of totality, by all means, grab your sun-safe glasses, go out there and watch this thing. It's stunning. It's a stunning display of watching the moon slowly overtake and get right there in between the sun, and knowing the geometry and the physics that has to happen of having a sun that is just far away enough and the moon is the exact, all the ratios match up to be able to pull this off. It's crazy. It's a crazy number of things that have to line up for this to happen the way that it does. So take advantage and go out and watch it. If you do want to DX this, even if you're going to be outside watching the event, here, let's talk now about how to DX this, how to set this up so your recording can occur and you don't have to miss anything. You can go back later and review this sucker. Okay. So I'm going to start with the AirSpy because I think this is going to be the one that a lot of people are going to be using, and it also is one that introduces a slightly different variable than some of the other SDRs might. So I'm here in SDR Sharp right now on our Surface Pro 6. I've got my AirSpy plugged in. What you want to do first before you do anything else. Now, if you are targeting, if you have stations in the expanded band that you desperately need and you're hoping to be able to get as a result of this eclipse, ignore what I'm about to say, okay? You'll want to include them in your frequency range that you're recording. But I have a recommendation that, unless you're doing that, unless you're targeting specific stations in the X band, don't include them in your recording. There's not enough there to really be valuable. You're going to be missing out on some frequencies that you could be getting some good stuff off of a little bit lower down. So here's what I recommend doing. Starting off, let us make sure, I want to get, where is our top frequency here? We're at 1520. I want to get this so that 1600 is the highest frequency I have right here. So up at the edge right here of my window, I'm at my full bandwidth. My sample rate is 912 kilobytes per second, whatever that is, KSPS, kilo something per second, kilosamples per second, whatever. My bandwidth is 725 kilohertz, right? So that's the maximum bandwidth that I can use on my AirSpy at any given amount of time. So set this at 1600 as your highest frequency within your zoomed out. If you're zoomed in, make sure you're all the way zoomed out. And set that 1600 right here on the edge, on the upper end. And then that should now allow you, when you're set to your maximum, to go all the way down to about 880. Okay? And there's 890 right there. Yes, about 880 or so. That's going to give you a vast majority of the band. Don't worry about the lower end of the band anyway, because as we typically see in the daytime, or in the evening rather, as the sun sets and these gray line conditions come in, what happens is that it starts from the top of the band and it goes down, right? It's not going to happen all at once. So here is a great example of that I just captured the other day. This is our Kiwi Kaz here in Mandeville. You see all these lines up here? See how robust this looks up here? This is the upper end of the band up here, from like 1700 on down. And this is somewhere right in here is 500. So right in here would be about 530, 540, 550. See how down here in the lower of the band, all those signals, those traces are not as strong. They're a lot weaker. They're not as continuous, but up here in the upper portion of the band, they are. They're nice, continuous, robust-looking traces. That's because as that D layer breaks down, the propagation starts from the top end of the band and works its way down, okay? So the ideal, if you want to capture the most stuff, there's two reasons you want to do this from the top end of the band. This is number one, is the propagation is going to be in your favor. The lower end of the band is going to be the last one to know there's anything going on in the D layer, okay? So again, unless you're targeting very, very specific stations down low or in the X band, I recommend that you have your window here with your maximum bandwidth between 1600 on the top end and about 880 or so down here at the bottom end. Everybody with me? Okay. The second reason that you want to do this, so that you have the upper end of the band, A, propagation's in your favor. 2B, is that's where all the stations are. The vast majority, if you look at the AM broadcast band and you total up all the different frequencies and you look at a breakdown of stations per frequency, it's top heavy. The vast majority of the stations that are on the AM broadcast band are up in the top. Your graveyard stations are all up there. All the big regionals and the 14s and 13s and 12s, they're all up there. So you're going to have a better chance of getting something cool and unique and new on the upper end of the band than you might on the lower end of the band. We're not looking for anything super crazy exotic here because of this solar eclipse. We're looking for new stuff that we don't normally get. So start off with that. If you're on an AirSpy and you don't have the ability to record the entire band, that's not a problem, okay? It's not going to be a problem. Just record from 1600 down as far as you possibly can with the widest bandwidth you can set it at, and you should be good, okay? That's number one. So how do I set this up so that SDR Sharp will do this? So first thing I do is I get my band set here within my waterfall, where 1600 is here and I'm down to about 880 down here. I go to my schedule, okay, in the baseband recorder. If you don't know how to find that, go up here in the little hamburger window on the left-hand corner and you'll find, baseband simple recorder. That's the one you want to make sure is engaged. That's going to open up a little tab like this, or a little box like this guy right here. I've got it docked down here, but it's going to make sure that's in there. So now, once you have that baseband recorder pulled up, now click on schedule. You're going to see something that looks like this. Okay. Click on add, and now you're going to put in your time frame. So in this case, I want this to be on April the 8th, and I want to start recording. I would say start recording about an hour or two before the sunset or the eclipse is supposed to start in your area, before any kind of attenuation is supposed to begin of the moon across the face of the sun. Give yourself about an hour before that. Okay, I would maybe let's say an hour before that's supposed to start, and go about an hour after. Okay, definitely that hour after, because some of those effects of that attenuation and the breakdown, that D layer, might take a little while to recuperate before it starts building back up again. So with that being said, give yourself about an hour before you are scheduled to start to have any sort of movement of the moon across the face of the sun in your local area. Start an hour before and go to an hour after it's all done, right? After it says we're back to 100% of the face of the sun, give yourself about an hour after that time. You can find that at timeanddate.com. I think it's what it is, timeanddate.com. And I will put a link here in the description, or in the chat rather. There we go. Down here, there is a link for the time and date, and you can plug in your location somewhere in here. I don't remember exactly where, but you can plug in your location, and it'll tell you what time everything's supposed to go down for your area. Okay, great way to kind of find that information. So, anywho. So, started about, let's just pretend here, I think it's supposed to start around 2 o'clock. So, let's just say I want to start it at, let's say 13. Oops, hit the wrong one. So, just type it in each of these little areas. It's a little bit difficult and a little bit wonky. I'm not a super big fan of it. Actually, I might start that a little earlier. Let's start that just to catch that top of the hour, just in case. 12:58:00. And let's just say that it's going to be over by 3 o'clock. So I'm going to run this till about 17:06:00 on that same day. Okay. And then once that is in there, I just click over here. If you're in this one and you're adjusting your time, just click back in like that start time. And now you're going to have an OK button. And that's going to have that. Now it's going to be scheduled. Now you're going to start having this recording on April the 8th at 12:58. It's going to start recording, and then it's going to run all the way until 17:06. Okay? And it's going to record whatever you have in this window right here. This is what it's going to record. And so everything within this window from 1600 down to 880 is what it's going to record for you. A couple things that you'll want to make sure that you also configure. So click on the configure button. You're going to want to make sure that you hit folder select and tell it where you want to save so you know where to find it. I recommend, let me get rid of that. I don't need that. Some people will put a file length limit in there. If you're tight on hard drive space, yeah, go for it. I don't do it because I want the whole file. I want it to record everything it needs to record. So if you're super tight on space, maybe try to free up some areas, and you can, if you can't do that, maybe you want to put that file length limit on there, and maybe shorten your time that you want to record, and maybe just do it during the actual event itself, instead of, on either side of it. But I recommend making sure this file length limit is not checked. The maximum file is going to be whatever I have got room for if I don't have that selected. In this case, it's a pretty big space because I've got a big SD card in my Surface Pro that I can record to. Everything else should be fine to be leaving it at the default. So the 16-bit PCMIQ is fine. File format, this wave RF64. I've never had any problems with any of that. So that's what I would do. Just leave it at that, and you should be fine. So there you go. And now I've got that scheduled on my Surface Pro now. So to start recording at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, roughly, on Monday, and it's going to record all the way through a little after 5 o'clock, and it should encapsulate that whole sequence of events. Maybe I don't need all that. Maybe you want to tighten it down. That's fine. You do you, but that's how you do that in SDR Sharp. Okay? That's it. It's super easy. Conversely, if you don't want to do that, if you don't want to schedule it ahead of time, you want to have a little more control over it, you can just open it up here, and then whenever you're ready to hit record, you hit record. It'll keep going until you tell it stop. That's it. That's how you can do it. So there you go. That is SDR Sharp, how this works. I'm going to do now Perseus, and we're going to use SDR Console here first. I know we're running up at 45 minutes here, so we'll be doing some DX in our new frequency announcement here in a little bit. This won't take too long for console. I'm not going to do the Jaguar yet. You guys know how to do Jaguar if you're using it. Perseus. Let me hit that mute. All right. So I'm here in my Perseus. No, it does not have FM, so it's not going to like that. Perseus is a little bit different, or SDR Console is a little bit different here in how it's going to do the recording. What you're actually going to do with recording in SDR Console, and I've got a whole video on this on the YouTube channel, so I'm not going to go into super great detail here because the video kind of covers more in detail. But what you're basically doing is you're setting a middle point. So whether you're going to use your AirSpy here, or if you're using a Perseus or whatever, what you want to do is you want to set a midpoint. And if you're wanting to record, if you have the capability of doing the entire band, like on the Perseus or an RSP, SDR Play, one of those kind of guys, what you'll want to do is set it somewhere around 1120. and then set your frequency somewhere around 1120, and then come over here to this little area and hit this little, looks like 2 arrows pointing at a line in the middle. Hit that. That's going to center your what you've got in front of you on that frequency that you have up there, the 1120, right? So now that we've done that, we've centered that to 1120, then go up here to record and playback, then go to schedule. That's going to bring you a window like this. Go to new, and I'm just going to call this Eclipse IQ, or whatever you want to call it. Make sure that it carried that middle frequency here, 1120. Now, when it actually does the recording, it might shift that a few hertz here or there. Don't worry about it. That's not a biggie. Make sure that your bandwidth is what you want it to be. Okay. If you're using the AirSpy, you'll want to figure out what that midpoint would be to get you that 1600 down to 880. If you're going to use the AirSpy within SDR Console, it's up to you. But you want to figure out what that midpoint would be. So make sure that you've got your bandwidth selected wherever you want it to be. I recommend locking the radio, because what can happen is if you don't do that, what can happen is if, let's say, you're recording and you come in and you're kind of playing around with it while it's recording, if by some whatever you go in or out of the frequency range that you're trying to do, it's going to adjust that, and you're going to lose all the other stuff down below it or above it or whatever. So I would just lock the radio. What that basically does is it locks you into the bandwidth with that center frequency. So if you have 1120 as your center, it'll lock it in, and everything, in this case, 1 megahertz on either side of that will be able to be looked at once. Anything outside of that, you won't be able to get to, okay? It won't disrupt the recording process. Select your folder where you want it to record, and then your format. I choose one file. Now, some people like to do a bunch of little files. That's fine. Whatever is best for you. I just choose one file. So it's just one file that I have to load, and I can just go through that and kind of review it. Your start time, again, we're doing the exact same thing here. You're putting in the start time that you wanted to do. So in this case, 12:58:00, and then you tell it how long you want that to run. In this case, I'm going to put it at, 4 hours and 6 minutes to get me where I was at with the other one, 4 hours and 6 minutes. Or I guess 10 minutes, roughly. 10. There we go, 4 hours and 10 minutes. I turn the reminder off. I don't have to repeat this here, and then I select for my date. I select what date I want it to be. In this case, it's April the 8th. Make sure that it pops up down here. Then hit OK. We'll add that definition in here. And then you want to make sure, the last step is you want to make sure that this start button right here is pressed and on. And then that's it. You're done. You're ready to roll. So that's console. That's SDR Sharp. Again, we've got a video here on the YouTube channel that goes more in detail about all the ins and outs of recording in console, and then how to review. I recommend that you take a look at that to know how to do the review after the fact. We'll touch on the SDR Sharp review a little bit later on, but that at least gets you started so you know how to set this up to record it. Again, Jaguar, if you're using Jaguar, you probably already know how to do this. So you should be good to go there. Can Jaguar be programmed to record 2 days from now, but not tomorrow? Well, okay, let's touch on that then. So good question. So let me go back over here to my Jaguar window. I'm going to go to, sorry, I have to look around my light here. Go to your setting cogwheel and then go to Mestor. Now, what this is basically going to do is whenever you set this up, it's running, right? Unless you change it to inactive, it's going to run whatever you've put in. So it's not really calendar based. It's not looking at days. Like I'm not able to say on Monday do this, but on Tuesdays and Wednesdays do this. It's not really looking at that necessarily. I don't think there's any option to do. No, there's not. You have a couple of options of continuous. So like on the day of, you can set it to continuously run from, now this is in UTC, keep that in mind. You can set this to run continuously from a certain time frame. Which is probably what you want to do for the Eclipse, honestly, is just say, here, just set it to be running continuously from, I think it's UTC. To run from whatever that 13 is, so 15, 18, no, 13 plus 5, yeah, 1800. Run from 1800 to, I guess, 17 would be 22. Run continuously. Hit save, and that will just allow that to run continuously during that time frame. And you should be good. I double checked to make sure to see if that's using. I think that's using UTC time. I don't think it's using local time, if I remember right. You can also do these recurring ones for a specific time frame or whatever. But again, it's not the interface here in Jaguar is not really date driven, not calendar based, it's time based. So it's really set up to be like a continuous thing that's happening every day more than anything. So for this particular event, the day of, what you'll want to do is go in that day, set that continuous time frame for the time range that you want to do, and then it should be fine. It'll record those little 8-minute chunks at a time. All right, that is, in a nutshell, what to expect during the eclipse. We talked about the propagation and why it's going to work the way it's going to work. We talked about how to set up your recordings in SDR Console, SDR Sharp, and in Jaguar. And so that should help the vast majority of you guys. For those of you who are running a portable or whatever it might be, just go in there and start at the top of the band and work your way down. That's my advice. Start at the top of the band and work your way down, looking for open frequencies that are in your area that are open during your daytime before the eclipse really starts up. Know what those are, and then during the eclipse and as you go along, just go back to those frequencies and recall those and see what's coming in. Spend some time on the graveyarders if you have a chance. Really, this is going to be best if you have an SDR, but you can do portable DX as well. But you have to have a little more strategy behind it, a little more planning ahead of it, to know kind of where you're going to go. Otherwise, you'll find yourself kind of flipping around a little bit. Notice that on SDR Console, the RDS window is showing while you're on AM. Is that a Perseus thing? No, that's just SDR Console. Because normally when I'm using Console, I'm using it with my Elad for FMDX, so that's why. It has nothing to do with Perseus. It's just SDR Console settings. All right, let's go ahead and announce our next frequency range that we're up against for our new week of the Medium Wave Frequency Challenge. We're going to say goodbye to 1060 to 1090. We're going to stick in the neighborhood. We're going to stick kind of in the neighborhood of the middle of the band here as we go along here. So let's go to the handy-dandy announcement. All right, so we're 950 to 990 is where we're going to be hanging out for the next week, looking at that frequency range to see what might pop up. I've got a local here on 940, and I got one on 990, so this is going to be an interesting week for me trying to get around the local stuff. So yeah, there you go. Let's go now to let's start off with the Kiwi. We're going to be recording on the Perseus and Jaguar, so we'll stay here on the Kiwi for now. Let me do one little thing here, DX challenges. So the new form will go live here at the top of the hour, but I'm going to go ahead and get the page queued up to go to that page for week 15 so that you guys will be able to start logging in. Let's go ahead and turn the audio on here on 950. Get ready for some splatter. Here it comes. Come on. You coming? Oh, it's locked. It's not moving. That's why. Shortwave Central. So we're gonna go up the side. Get away from the splatter a little bit. Yeah, I want to get away from that splatter. So we got Radio Reloj in Cuba coming in, interestingly enough, on the Northwest Wire. And you actually can hear them doing not just the clicks and the RR, but you can actually hear them reading the news. The cadence. Sometimes they get a little wonky with the cadence. Throws you off, but that was pretty close to what they usually do. 960. Let's go check you out now. And let's go back to my stereo. Les, welcome back, my friend. We're going to be talking some FMDX next hour. And we got some special FMDX weeks heading our way before we wrap up the season. I did add a couple things here. I added a great circle map so that shortwave DXers and AM DXers alike can see, depending on which orientation it is, the antenna is in, what to expect. Right now it's in the northern orientation, so here's what you can expect in the U.S.-Canadian standpoint in these states in here. For those of you who are looking on HF and the shortwave bands, this is a nice look into Eastern Asia as well. So some good stuff's in there. So put that link up there. So if you ever want to see what that great circle map looks like from here, for this Kiwi, it's up here in the link. And you'll always see what the current orientation is on our description. Is that KMA? I wouldn't be surprised on this northwest, this northern wire. They're within 10 degrees of the center line of this CAS. Let's do it. Hit those signs, Bill. Oh, you already did. You can't even see the siren. There we go. Now you can see it. I'm gonna hit record on my Kiwi here.
That's bethematch.org. Take a moment and register today. The life you save could be making or someone else waiting for you.
WERC Birmingham, WERC FM Hoover, broadcasting from the Be Dry, Alabama studios and available everywhere with the iHeartRadio app. It's 8 o'clock.
Figured that was coming.
Another body found. I'm Lisa Lacera, Fox News. The body of a third victim of the Francis Scott Key Bridge collapse has been recovered.
Baltimore Mayor Brandon Scott revealing unified command dive team.
He's on number 2.
Maynor Yasir Swazo Sandoval. Maryland State Police, the FBI, and reps from the governor's office met with and notified the 38-year-old
Could that be KZIM?
family. Scott adding, I am grateful
With the Royals?
to the first responders who have
I don't know
focus on
who carries the Royals here. Let me look at our handy dandy.
8 people fell from the collapsing bridge. bridge after a cargo ship crashed into it. 2 were rescued, 3 bodies have been recovered, and 3 victims remain missing. Colonel Roland Butler Jr. of the Maryland Department of State Police saying in a statement,
list
I can
from last year from the Grand
Grand
Slam Challenge, which again is on hiatus, well, not hiatus, but on pause right now for this season.
Baltimore this afternoon, getting a first-hand look at the damage to the bridge and promising federal help.
I stand here.
We're gonna come back to it, but we need a little more time.
This effort as soon as possible.
And the president said those responsible for the bridge collapse will pay for damages and be held accountable. A magnitude 4.0 aftershock in the Northeast this evening, hours after an earthquake centered in New Jersey was felt in 14 states.
The concern, obviously, is how many more of these will we see? Generally, for probably the next week to 2 weeks, there will be aftershocks. They generally
AMA would be the Royals affiliate on this frequency, so that would be them.
And I think what we saw, these 2.0, 2.2, we thought maybe that would be it. And we had this 4.0. So can't rule out that there could be something strong. You need to make sure you have all your preparations and know exactly what you need to do if you start to feel any trembling over the next few days.
Fox meteorologist Rick Reichmuth. The Israeli military has dismissed 2 officers and reprimanded 3 others for the roles in drone strikes in Gaza that killed 7 aid workers. America is listening to Fox News.
Are you over 30 and putting off life insurance? It's time to get a quick quote from me.
No, I do have KMA.
Easier way to get term life insurance.
I do have them here, but that is anytime I can get an Iowa or something up in that area, even if it's a relog, I'm happy.
10 minutes to help protect your family's financial security. Ethos.
Bart wants to know.
Coverage with no medical exam. Some policies
As I
as low as
pause here.
$1 a day.
Bart, yeah, right, Mike. Bart wants to know, have to ask, as an SDR receiver, how does the Kiwi compare to the AirSpy or the RSPDX? Very good question, and I will answer that here in a bit. I will touch on that.
Gold is setting new record highs daily. So where do you purchase gold for your portfolio this year? Don't believe the hype from the paid celebrities. Call me at Universal Coin and Bullion. I won't add ridiculous markups. You won't overpay for gold. Call Universal Coin and Bullion at 800-822-GOLD. That's 800-822-GOLD.
Oh, that reminds me. Are they selling the new third run yet?
Wisconsin OBGYN sued
Not yet. Okay. Keeping an eye on that because I want to pick up a second one here during their third production build and have one here at DX Central and Warsaw Studios.
For Wisconsin's 8th congressional district. 2 weeks before Republican Rep Mike Gallagher is set to leave the House seat for a position in the private sector.
Answers all this new
Wisconsin lawsuit that succeeded in keeping abortion legal after the U.S. Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade in 2022. For now, Lyerly is unopposed in the conservative district, where 2 Republicans are running and a third is expected. Jeff Manasso, Fox News.
This was going out to our good friend Bart. I can't do the case. I used to be able to do Casey Kasem. Can't do him anymore. Trying to null ERC with the channel null.
To treat or prevent parasites, but it's not meant for use against COVID. The FDA also warns you can overdose on.
All right, let's check. We'll come back to that. We'll check 970. That's going to be Mexico, more than likely. XERFR. Mexico City.
Buenas tardes. Sí, la situación en Ecuador se pone cada vez más tensa. Tenemos contacto con
Let's check 980. One of those is going to be KQUE. Radio Alleluia. In Rosenberg, Texas. It's a 50 log countdown. All the way up to number 3.
And he tells us how to pray. He gives us what we call the disciples' prayer. Some people call it the Lord's Prayer. Actually, it shouldn't be called the Lord's Prayer.
This other one might be...
He said when
when you pray after this manner. The old rabbis used to give what they
Shreveport in
called
there
index
now?
prayers. They would just give these little prayers that were like
980 is a little more
index
open here, and then
prayers.
990
And
you're
they
going
would
to
say,
see.
Now, pray like the covenant home.
Thank you, Mexico Mike P. Letting us know they were talking about tense relations between Mexico and Ecuador. Confirming that was RFR for us.
To realize that we're too great a nation to limit ourselves to small dreams.
So that's our local here. WGSO here on 990. They're easy enough to get around sometimes. You can usually get around them with the channel null here on the Kiwi. So that's where we're going to be this week, 950 to 990. So we've taken our first tour through the band there on those new frequencies. We'll be doing more as we go along the night. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to have more shout-outs. We're going to have round 2 of shout-outs, so make sure you get yours in on the shout-out submission form if you have not done so already. So we'll do round 2 of the shout-outs coming up. We're also going to talk a bit more about AM propagation and what to expect as we transition into this next phase of the DX season. DX season doesn't end. There's always something to DX on AM. That's the great thing about it. FM has seasons. You know, you got your Tropo season, you got your E-skip season, you got some meteor scatter during certain times of the year when the meteor showers are in, but AM is always around. It doesn't go away. You just have to adjust a little. You have to shift a little bit what you're looking for. So we're going to talk about how to get into phase 2 of the DX season for summertime and what to expect and how to make those adjustments so that you can get stuff in your logbook. We're going to look at some sunrise and sunset maps. We're going to go into it here. So don't go anywhere, my friends. More great DX and AM and FM DX related stuff is heading your way on DX Central Live.
DX Central, because we're all about radio. Visit us at dxcentralonline.com or check us out on YouTube. Search DX Central. DX Central Live is brought to you in part by...
From the pages of its DX Monitor member bulletin, members of the International Radio Club of America share their domestic and international AM/DX loggings. In its Mexican log, a wealth of information can be found of stations from south of the border. Technical guides, sunrise, sunset maps, and more make the IRCA a must-join for any AM/DXer. For more information, log on to ircaonline.org. That's ircaonline.org. While the HF bands can be filled with entertaining and intriguing transmissions, how do you know when and where to look? Let Teague Publishing's Global Radio Guide lead the way. In addition to its exhaustive list of time and frequency for international broadcasters, radio hobby icon Gail Van Horn brings you equipment reviews, an SDR buyer's guide, feature articles, and more. Pick up your copy today. Visit teaguepublishing.com for more information. That's teaguepublishing.com. Since 1933, the National Radio Club has been serving AM/DXers while providing some of the most in-depth information in the hobby. From the annual NRC AM log, a must-have reference for domestic station information, to antenna design reference manuals, and of course, the DX News member bulletin, which is filled with station information updates, domestic and international loggings, and a whole lot more. Become a member today. For more information, log on to nationalradioclub.org. That's nationalradioclub.org.
Through crashes of static in quiet hours, we listen. In languages we can scarcely understand, and of places we have only visited in our dreams, we listen. Incessantly, we perfect our array of aerials, receivers, and resources. We refine our skills and our techniques so that we might listen. We are DX Central, and we're all about radio. Visit us at dxcentralonline.com or check us out on YouTube. Search DX Central.
Keep up with DX Central. Follow us on Twitter at DX Central.
from the DX Central North Shore Studios, this is DXC Live. Now here's your host, Lloyd Van Horn.
It's DX Central Live from the North Shore Studios here in Mandeville, Louisiana, every Friday night, at least for a few more weeks here, until May 3rd. And then we'll take a little summer break and regroup for Season 5. Can you believe Season 5? I was doing some looking back, I guess last week, somewhere in here. Recently, I don't know what it was that prompted me to do it, but I went back and watched my first ever live stream. It's still up on the YouTube channel. I'm not taking it down. It's still there, but we've come a long way, my friends. We've come quite a ways since our very first live stream back in 2021 that we did. It was 2021. I think it was around April of 2021, actually. So about 3 years ago, we did our very first live stream, and we have definitely come a long way. You guys have been a big part of that, and so I thank you all for being part of the growth that we've had here at DX Central. We've started a new video series, our Radio 101 video series. I hope to do some more filming this weekend for our next video in that series. It's really kind of targeted. Radio 101 is more targeted for non-DXers who might casually be interested in radio and like this idea of DXing. Maybe they don't even know what it's called, but they kind of want to DX. Or maybe they do it, they just don't know it. And then we have DX 101, which is more like you guys, right? You guys that are watching right now that are like into this stuff. And you absorb it all and you want to know all the information and all the details. That's DX 101. Radio 101 is more for like, hey, come check out what we're doing over here. So we'll be doing some more filming in that here pretty soon, and our next one in the series. But this would not happen. None of this would happen without you guys. You guys doing what you do, being here every week, watching the videos, liking the videos, giving us thumbs up, making sure you're subscribed to the channel, like all these things that you guys do to support us here at DX Central, and you have been amazing. Interacting with us on social media, all that stuff. That's why we're here. That's why this is moving in this general positive direction that we're going in. Okay? So thank you. From all of us and from me, thank you very much. Which brings me to my next little ditty that we're going to get to, which is our next round of shout-outs. Yeah, buddy! Yes, sir. Forgot to do that last time. Forgot we have this handy-dandy little intro for shout-outs here now. Horn of Victory, you ready? Cool, let's do this. We are going to pick up here with our friend Carl. Carl in Kingsport, Tennessee has had a good week and has done some pretty cool stuff. Hey, he got himself an AirSpy HF Plus Discovery! I'm saying, man. Okay, so back to your question, Bart. While we're talking about Carl and his new AirSpy, and Rick is also working on getting his AirSpy up and running. We were talking through that last night, the process of getting SDR Sharp installed. I want to know how that's going, by the way. So Bart asked if you, before when we're doing top of the hour alert there, about the Kiwi compared to like the AirSpy or the RSPDX and how they perform as an SDR. So let me give you my thoughts. The Kiwi is a fantastic receiver. Okay. It is really, really awesome to be able to log in remotely from no matter where I am and DX. I don't have to have it plugged into my computer. I just have to have power and an internet connection and an antenna, and that's it. That's all I have to have. It's super simple. It's the most easy way to get into this stuff. It's $435, okay, to get a Kiwi from New Zealand to the US. About $435, okay? So it's not the cheapest option that's out there. It's not the most expensive either, but it's definitely, you know, for what it is, it's a nice way to DX, connected remotely and things like that. I know there are ways to do recordings and things like that within SDR or within Kiwi, but I do miss that simplicity of like setting up my Perseus or my AirSpy to say record tonight, top of the hour, every hour, just record me that little segment and then go back and review that recording and see what all I caught, right? That you don't really get in the Kiwi. Okay. So it's really more like it's a live DX machine. Okay. So it's really good at live DX. It's and capturing what you're hearing, like hitting that little record button and recording that. And I know Jacob does overnight recordings, things like that as well, but it's really down to that one frequency, right? It's not going to broadband record the entire band for you. It's that one frequency that you're on that you're saying, I want to record this frequency. You'd have to have different windows open on each of the frequencies you want to record and just record those. And then all you're getting is just the audio that's there. So if you wanted to change modes from like upper or lower sideband, you can't, right? Stuff like that. So it's a different way of doing SDR than what a lot of us are used to with AirSpy and like the Perseus and the RSPDX. One little negative that I have about it is a little more prone to overload. I have to dial in, when we're pointing our Kiwi CAS down to the south, I have to dial in 21 dB of attenuation, RF attenuation, to keep it kind of tamed, right? And kind of where it needs to be. The RSPDX is similar. It doesn't have to have quite that much attenuation, but it does need some attenuation. The Perseus needs, I usually keep about 12 dB of attenuation on the Perseus at all times, pretty much, especially when I'm looking south. The AirSpy, I've never attenuated, not once. Never, ever have I done that. Never done that at all. Never used any attenuation, never backed off the RF gain, none of that on the AirSpy. It just works. So I will say this one more time from a different standpoint now. I've kind of alluded to this over the last couple of years in these live streams and some videos, but if I was sitting in the shoes of a person who didn't have an SDR and wanted to get into it, I would buy an AirSpy. If I already had an SDR, I would still buy an AirSpy. If I'm a seasoned DXer with Perseus experience and I've got like one or two Perseuses and maybe a couple of others, and I'd still have an AirSpy. I don't care what the situation is, and wherever I'm DXing, however I'm DXing, AM or FM, I want there to be an AirSpy in my shack at all times. That will always be with me from now on. So for some folks, you can get that AirSpy and that's where you stop. That's it. You're done. You got what you need. I have different options for different reasons. So my toolkit is very vast, right? I like to have a very robust toolkit with a lot of different options so I can do different things for different times and different reasons. But if I'm looking for like that one silver bullet SDR that's going to just get the job done, I am going AirSpy all day, 6 ways to Sunday, and once more tomorrow. I'm buying that AirSpy, AM or FM. It doesn't matter. And yeah, you don't get to record the entire AM band with the AirSpy. I mean, I've got recordings with the entire band that I haven't even touched from Charleston and here. I'm not missing anything by not being able to record the entire band with an AirSpy. If there's a specific area that you're targeting, target it. Like we talked about earlier. If you want the low end of the band, record the low end of the band. From 540 on up as high as you can go. If you want the upper end, from 1600 as low as you can go. That's easy. You can plan for that. You can work around that. And I do that when I'm doing like band scans when I travel. I'll do like, okay, night 1, I'm going to point my antenna north-south. Night 1, I'm recording the upper end of the band. Night 2, I'm doing the lower end of the band. And then I'm going to change it at midnight and go east-west, and I'm doing the upper end of the band and the lower end of the band, right? So I plan for that. I accommodate that with what I do when I'm doing my SDR recording. So hopefully that helps. If I had one SDR to rule them all, it would be the AirSpy. I love the Kiwi. I'm going to buy another Kiwi for us here at DX Central. Mom's got hers that we've been using. I'm going to put one here with my East-West Superloop here at DX Central. Once the third build is open for orders, we're going to put one here at DX Central North Shore Studios. Okay? That'll be part of our remodel that we do here in a couple weeks or several weeks. So that will be happening. But that's because I want to have some different options, and I really want those Kiwis to be there for you guys too, right? If I didn't have those things kind of going on, if we weren't doing all the things that we do here at DX Central to try all the different stuff and do all the different things that we do, it would just be my AirSpy. It'd just be an AirSpy. That's all I'd have. All right. Persei would be the plural of Perseus. Persei. Persei. Perseus is Perseus. So let's go back to Carl and his amazing week that he had. So we got the AirSpy HF Plus Discovery rocking. He first off, he hit a goal, 725 AM stations logged. He just recently eclipsed 700, And then he got this AirSpy, and now he's already at 725. So you can tell he's been kind of crushing it here. He's at 726 right now, actually. So let's look at this. He did some AM and some FM this week. He's been doing some FM and got some new stuff, including, I think, some new states. 8 new AM stations, CHOK in Ontario, WKFI in Ohio, WKGX in North Carolina, WKLF in Alabama, WCGO in Illinois, WPGP in Pennsylvania, WTSD in Virginia, and WHBG in Virginia. And so that's 8 new AM stations, and now 15 new stations on FM in 5 different states. Tennessee, Kentucky, Virginia, North Carolina, and South Carolina, including... Were any of those new states for you on FM, by the way? Because we want to hit that firework if we need to for you. Let me know in the chat, Carl, if those are new states. Including using the FM canceller to cancel out W251CJ to nab WBRF on 98.1 in Virginia. All logs on the AirSpy HF Plus Discovery with the W6 LVP loop. It is just it's the one, man. That combo, those two, that SDR and that antenna, you can DX anything you want. Anything you want. Anything. You can DX AM, you can DX FM. What more do you need? Now, we do different things here, and I have a taste for super exotic Latin stations. So I've got Superloops and Kazas and things like that. So we went a little more complex because of that. But I'll tell you, man. I will tell you. On my W6 LVP loop, when it was the only one I had up in the air, I heard Alberta. I heard California from here, louder than I've heard them some other times, maybe. All up in Colombia, the Caribbean, Puerto Rico. So it can do some damage. That combo, the AirSpy and the W6 LVP, can do some damage. Congratulations, Carl, my friend. And we also owe you this. Hit that goal. There you go. Hit that goal. No new states on FM, he says. No worries. We'll keep the fireworks handy in case we need to fire those off here for you. As we get into FM season, because it's coming. Bill, only one new in this week from Michigan, 1080 WKGX in Lenoir, North Carolina, but that was catch number 1,300 from Michigan. I don't have a 1,300. I can do this one again. And for the log, my friend. Barry logged Peru on his W6 LVP loop. I'm just saying. It's there. The DX is there. It might be a little more difficult on a W6 LVP loop than it would be on a Kaz. I kind of look at it this way. On HF for my ham radio work that I do, I have 100 watts and a W5 GI mystery antenna strung up in a tree. I don't have a tri-bander, I don't have a beam and all these other things that a lot of people have and big amps and stuff like that. We can work the same DX. It's going to take me longer to get there. It's going to take me more work to get there. And there may be some things that I can't work because I just can't reach them. But pretty much anything you can work, I can work with that 100 watts on a wire. If I'm just patient and try to get there. It just might take me a little longer. That's the best comparison I can say. You can hear the same stuff on the AirSpy W6 LVP loop combination that any of the rest of us can. It just might take you a little longer to get there. It might take a little more work, a little more planning to get there. The Kaz and the DKazs and things like that are just like, it's the fast lane. The way I look at it. Right? We've got more shout outs to get to from David Harden. David in Warner Robins, Georgia, picked up WTLN 990. down in Orlando on FM. Had WOBB 100.3 from Albany, Georgia on Tropo. Keep DXing as much as I can. Love it. Yes, sir. Mexico, Mike J. So good job, David, my friend, there in Warner Robins. Mexico, Mike J. in Mexico, doing a little traveling this week to the Yucatan Peninsula. Has had himself a time trying to get some DX going from down there. It can be frustrating when it doesn't work out. Had all those plans of what he was going to hear, and it's been a struggle to do the DX that he wanted to do. But he's been able to get some stuff done. He got his first non-Mexican catch on 1060. That is KTSN in Lockhart, Texas, thanks to the frequency challenge. Nice. On an abbreviated week due to his travel. So, Mike, thank you for joining us in here tonight. We know you're on the road, but safe travels to you, my friend. Keep that work going on getting that DX and seeing what you can hear from the Yucatan Peninsula there. But for your new log of Lockhart, Texas, we give you a nice chainsaw. And I'm going to drop the, oh yeah, Bill logged Argentina on his W6LVP loop. Argentina. I knew one of you guys had heard Argentina there on a W6LVP. I just couldn't remember which one of you guys it was. So yeah, you can do it. The conditions, if the propagation is, I hear my dad talking in my head right now. If the band is open, band is open. If the propagation is there, it's there. If the ionosphere wants you to hear Argentina or Alberta or whatever else, you're going to hear it. If it's not favorable, you can maybe overcome some of that with some fancier antennas and SDRs and things like that. Maybe. More on the antennas than the SDRs, to be honest. SDRs can get you an air spy and you won't be disappointed. Especially the co-channel canceller. Come on, man. All right. One more bit of shout outs here for this second round, and then we'll put a pin in those. I just dropped the link in the chat so you guys can continue to submit your shout outs if you guys have any more that need to be submitted. But we're going to go to our friend Walter here in Albany, Georgia, with his shout outs for the week. 1060 KY Philadelphia made it down to Georgia this week. 1070 WNCT Greenville, North Carolina, on the 30th, March 30th. And 2 stations received on 1080 during the early morning overnight hours. WKJK in Louisville. I think I may have had them yesterday, maybe. That's Talk Radio 1080 from approximately 410 to 440. And KRLD Dallas came in as well in the morning as well. So very nicely done. From Warner Robins, Georgia, North Carolina, Philly, Dallas, and Louisville. There you go, my friend. Well done, Walter. All right, let's do some talking here about propagation. We'll do another round of shout outs. If you do have some more shout outs that you want to get in, go ahead and submit those. We'll be doing another round here after the top of the hour. I'll throw mine in there as well because we had a pretty good week. I got some new stuff on AM and on FM, including maybe coloring a new state in on the FM side. Maybe. Yeah. Sorry, it couldn't be, but maybe a little. Maybe. All right, so let's talk about AM propagation. We're heading towards what I kind of look at as a phase shift in our AM DXing. So obviously, a lot of us that do both AM and FM, we're going to be spending a lot of time focusing on FM DX in the next several months. It really kind of kicks up here in April for a lot of folks around coastal areas with Tropo. Some of you even inland might get a little Tropo from time to time. This is the time of the year to do it. If you're looking on your local radar and you see a lot of ground clutter on your radar, go flip on the FM radio and see what you got. You might have some Tropo enhancement happening because those inversion layers are where that usually kind of comes from. So, and you'll see a lot of that kind of ground clutter, inversion type stuff happening this time of the year. And basically that's because it's actually cooler at the surface than it is as you go higher in elevation, higher in altitude. It actually warms up a little bit, which is not what it's supposed to happen. That's the inverse of what's supposed to happen. That's why they call it an inversion layer. So when it's warmer up above than it is down below, that's not supposed to happen. So you get these inversion layers and FM signals start bouncing. So I know we're going to be starting to do some FMDX. We kind of go into later into this month, especially. We've already done a little bit here. And then E-skip season is, we're just waiting for that first opening of the season to happen, whenever that will happen. I've even had some meteor scatter happening this week. I saw Indiana, and I want to say it was Pennsylvania maybe this week, the one I had. Meteor scatter. I know out in Washington, DX Sphere, you were hearing a bunch of meteor scatter out your way as well, from the Pacific Northwest. So meteor scatter season is also kind of really starting to kind of crank up as we get some of these meteor showers that kind of come in each month. But AM, let's talk about AM propagation and what to expect. So some things are going to start happening here. Number one, your D layer is going to be stronger, and it's going to be more robust. And that's because there's more hours of daylight. Number one, there's more hours of daylight kind of ionizing that layer of the atmosphere and really kind of baking it in and kind of getting it nice and strong. So you're going to have more of that. And also the angle of the sun is such that it's more direct. That solar radiation is more direct coming in. That's part of why that angle that we have of the sun is part of why it's warmer in the summertime. So for the folks in the Northern Hemisphere, that's some of the things that we're going to start to see happen here, is that we're going to have longer daylight and we're going to have a different change in the angle of the sun. That's going to all lead to a stronger D layer. So what does that mean? That means in the sunset period at night, it's going to be a little bit different than what we've seen. The way that breaks down is going to be different. So those little pockets and gaps we talked about earlier in the eclipse video, those pockets and gaps might be different than what we normally see, or they might take longer to develop. And so that throws off some of that timing that you've been seeing on when certain stations will power down or sign off and things like that. That throws off some of that timing. So some different things are going to happen. Not to mention, angles are different. There are angles that occur during this time of the year in the summertime that don't occur any other time of the year. So you're going to have a path of gray line, a darkness path or a gray line path between you and stations during the summer that don't exist any other time of the year. So this is a really great time. And if you actually, let me see if I have handy here. I want to say it's one of these little notebooks that I have here. I was going to grab this before we got to this topic. We got sidetracked. There's the Mexican log. Handy dandy reference. Here we go. Okay. So this is going to be very low tech. I was going to do this on a little bit fancier method, but here's a very low-tech solution. So these are sunset sunrise maps that you can get from the IRCA. You can also, I think, get these from the NRC as well. If you're a member, you can order these sunrise sunset maps. So what you basically have is you have, in this case, these solid lines here are the sunset, and these dashed lines here are the sunrise, right? So every 15 minutes, basically, as it goes along. So it's the angle of the sun. So you'll see here January, you have a nice kind of crisscross thing. And then as we get into March, what happens? That angle starts to get more straight, more up and down, right? As we get to that spring equinox. And then things start kind of angling out again as you go through. Now here's May, June. See, what starts to happen is that what starts off kind of like this kind of comes to here, and then it starts to go like this. And so that angle becomes more pronounced. So as that happens, that angle between you and the stations that are along that gray line, that's a whole different set of stations you don't see any other time of the year. So for instance, this is July. This is for right here for me. It's at 00. I don't remember. I think it's around 8 o'clock-ish will be the sunset time that we usually see around there. So in that span right here, this is my sunset span right here. Up into Michigan, Ohio, Kentucky, Tennessee, Alabama. I don't have that same angle any other time of the year. I'll have that same sunrise angle, but not sunset angle. So what you're basically able to do is you're able to hear stations that you normally would not be able to hear any other time of the year. Where does this come into play? Well, a couple of places. Number one, I've talked about this before. The graveyard frequencies are a great place to kind of experience this. The graveyard frequencies, you can just kind of sit on those frequencies. If you're live DXing, which every night just pick a different one, or if you're doing your recording and going back and reviewing them, you can just kind of check this and make sure you start recording about 45 minutes before sunset local time, and let that kind of roll for about an hour or so after. Okay. And what you're going to notice, depending on, and that can change depending on where you live, right? Because basically what you'll notice is you can follow the sun. I used to do this. We were talking about this in the Slack channel last night. I used to do this on 1580 and 1570. My dad taught me this one of the first things he taught me about AMDX propagation was go sit on 1570 and 1580. And there were a lot of stations like in this 200 to 500 watt range that would sign off, or in some cases just change their pattern or whatever. But most of the time it was signing off. Back in the early 90s, they would just sign off, and you could actually sit there and follow the sun. And so you'd start about a little bit before I was in North Carolina at the time, so you'd start a little bit before your local sunset. Stations to my east in North Carolina or Pennsylvania up the East Coast, you start to hear those sign off, and then you be a little bit closer. Maybe now we're in West Virginia, Ohio, and now it's a little bit to my west. Now it's in Tennessee, Kentucky, and it just keeps on going, and it keeps going. You kind of follow the sun that way. And so that path that you have in June, July, August, you're not going to see that path or that sunset path any other time of the year. So it's really great on the graveyarders. It's great. It's still pretty good on 1570, 1580. I have 13 stations on 1580 here doing the same technique. So it can still be done. It's not as pronounced as it used to be, but you can still get some results out of this. Your regionals, your 1300 range regionals, 1310, 1320, 1330, your 14s, 1410, 1420, 1430. These are great frequencies to sit on. 1470. Great frequencies to sit on during these kind of gray line periods, because you're going to hear stuff you don't normally get to hear. And then another thing that happens on the graveyards is that during the wintertime, you have a lot more, because things are quieter, stations that are from further away are able to kind of get in, and that kind of attenuates the stations a little bit closer in. So that kind of 2 to 3, maybe 400-mile range from where you are on the graveyard frequencies doesn't happen as often in the wintertime. You're getting more you get some of those, but more it's like the 4, 5, 6, 7, 800-mile stations, because now they're able to get in further, right? That skywave is bouncing them even better in now during the winter because the propagation is favorable and they have more time to kind of do that. In the summertime, that doesn't really happen as much. So you do have a chance to get some of those stations that might be a little closer into you in all directions that maybe you can't normally hear because they're being overcome by these further out stations. So it's just a different angle. And then finally, and I don't have any scientific basis for this. I can't tell you why I'm going to tell you what I'm telling you right now. I've seen it in my logbook, and someone who has been in the hobby and kind of studied this from a more scientific angle may know. But across the equator, okay, Latin America in general, I feel like, and when I looked at my logbook, it may just be a coincidence, but when I've researched my logbook, Latin America in general is really good in the summertime. Now, that could be because of the way that the angles of the sun and the ionosphere and the ionization, and especially when you have these solar maximums and the activity that's coming off of that, might be how all that kind of plays together. I don't know. I can't tell you why. I just know that when I look back to my logbook at all the Latin American DX that I've done over the years, there's a lot in the wintertime when it's nice and quiet. There's a lot in the summer too. There's a lot in the summer. And we also get these trans-equatorial, because remember what's going on while we're in the summertime in the northern hemisphere. Across the equator, they're in winter, right? We see this with 6 meters and 2 meters on the ham bands. You see this with FM sometimes. If it gets down that far, you'll see this with even 15, 17 meters on the ham bands, things like that. You get this trans-equatorial enhancement at certain times of the year. Well, AM can do that too. Benin in Africa, I logged them July, right? High in July, late at night one night, right before they were about to sign off. In fact, that's how I knew I confirmed I got them, was they signed off at the right exact time on 1476. I would be willing to make you a bet. Some Brazilians will be heard this year during summer. If some of you do that summertime DX, someone's going to hear Brazil during summer. I'm going to be targeting the crap out of them this summer with the Kiwi Cats on the south side. I'll be targeting Brazil, and I'm targeting Bolivia and Chile and Uruguay and Paraguay. Yes, the noise is louder. Yes, there's going to be more static and things like that that you have to kind of contend with and deal with. But it doesn't mean it's impossible. It's going to be a little more challenging. You're going to have to use some of your resources like online streams, Kiwi SDRs to compare to. You're going to have to do a little more sleuthing and maybe a little more preparing and planning ahead of time about what your strategy is going to be, about what stations you target, and kind of how your plan is going to work on all that. Might require a little bit more work, but you can do some really great stuff during summertime. So this is all me saying as we kind of transition out now, gone are the days for right now until we get back into the wintertime where you can sit on 1610 and hear CHHA from Charleston, South Carolina at noon, right? That's about to be kind of gone, right? That's not going to really be happening because the D layer is going to be super absorbent, like a bounty paper towel in the sky, right? It's kind of sucking up all the AM signals. That D layer is going to be super absorbent during the summertime. But because of that, that's going to give us a whole different way that the band's going to behave. It's going to do some different things in the angles of the sun and the way the D layer is going to sit, and how that D layer erodes over the course of the evening is going to be different during the summer than it does any other time of the year. So don't dismiss AM. I go on this rant every single year. I know I do. I know. But don't dismiss AM summertime DX because it can be really, really rewarding. And the folks who are diligent and put up with the static and the noise that's a little bit higher that time of the year. Look, I'm used to it. I'm in Louisiana. We get static year round, right? I'm used to DXing through thunderstorms. So if you want some practice, just jump on our Kiwi. We'll give you all the practice you want. So I might be a little more immune to that being a barrier for me than some folks are, because for me, that's kind of our default position is DXing through static. As long as it's not like really, really close where it's just like covering up and I can't hear anything, that can be a little problematic. But if it's distant static, distant lightning crashes, I can work with that, right? So, and if you have the ability to turn your antenna away, the opposite direction of those those lightning crashes, that can be a strategy that can help you out. Like when they're down to my south, maybe I'll look more north. When they're to my north, maybe I'll look down south, right? So think about those things. And like I said, that might be part of your planning and strategy that you do as you do the summertime DX, but don't think that, May 1st, it's time to take all the antennas down and start focusing on FM or other stuff, because it's not. It's just not. It's a great time to get some great stuff. So there's my spiel on AMDX. All right. We are coming up here on another top of the hour in about 15 minutes. Let's do some more live DX, shall we? Live FMDX or AMDX right now, brought to you by the folks at the International Radio Club of America, the IRC. That's ircaonline.org. We invite you to make sure that you are a member of both of the clubs, the NRC and the IRCA, and take advantage of all the membership benefits there within. We got some more shout-outs we'll get to here in round 3. We got Kyle in here, DX Fear. We got you in there. We got Walter with another one here that he got tonight with our new frequencies. Very, very nice. Oh, by the way, someone let me know in the chat. I've missed some of the stuff up further. Let me know in the chat if you're able to log stuff on the new form. I just want to make sure it's working for everybody, because sometimes WordPress can be a little funky. I just want to make sure that it's working for you. So let me know in the chat if you're able to get in there and do stuff. It should have automatically published, but sometimes it does stuff randomly. So let's go back up to our Kiwi, and we're going to check out, let's start back on 950 and just work our way back up again. 950 to 990. New form is working. Sweet. All right. We've got a local here. Or domestic.
Expensive and underperforming investment options, and have CDC administrative
So Cuba is not taking over here like it was earlier on 950. I would imagine this is Memphis. Oh, sorry, looking at the wrong freak. KPRC? KPRC Houston, that's my guess.
Are you over 30 putting off life insurance? Trying to get a quick quote from us? A better, easier way to get started with insurance. All online, no medical exam. Health questions, and you could be approved for
I think I hear some baseball in there too.
your family's financial security. Keep us up to $200 in coverage with no medical exam. Some policies as low as $1 a day. Answer a few questions and get your free quote at checkethos.com. That's checkethos.com.
Yeah, this has got to be KPRC. There's also some country music in here. Which that might be Arkansas Boot Crew, if you guys want to confirm for me. That's Fort Smith that I'm hearing there with country music. So that's 3 stations. And no sign of Cuba.
You're not allowed to do the victim. You're an activist. You've chosen sides.
So we got KPRC there on top with the talk station that's running the bumper now with Jukebox Hero there. Then we have another talk station in there. And then there's a country station, which I would imagine is probably Arkansas Fort Smith. Only because they're right in the center line of that CAS at 326 degrees and our CAS at 330. Rick says he's chasing after WORD. Used to be a hometown station for me when I was in Greer, South Carolina. Parker, Denver is usually a pest for you. Oh, I'd love to snag them this week. I wish I could still hear that country. If they could stop playing Jukebox Hero for a second here, maybe we could still hear that country music that was coming in underneath. And then Keegan, you can tell me if we're getting them here with the country music. Yeah, it sounds like there's a guy in there singing right now, country. Probably something about trucks. Ah, there's Rouleau in there. The Outlaw. I'm guessing who that is. I still want Detroit here. I've never heard Detroit from Louisiana on 950. Oh, good call. I forgot about Franklin as well. bugs. I last heard them when I was in Charleston, but I have not been able to snag them here. There's a good beat on that country station. Yeah, I'll have to break out the 15-degree Superloop this week on the AirSpy and try for Detroit. That's pointing right at them. They're at 23 degrees for me. WWJ is, and so they'll be within 8 degrees. That's close enough. Oh, that's a good call, Jacob. Yeah, that's been a good direction for us this week. We're going to talk about that after the top of the hour here, what we've snagged this week. It's been impressive. That Kaz is really crushing it. Take care, Master Player. Appreciate you being here, my friend. Rascal Flats is Fort Smith. Oh, that's what I thought. We've also got Mark Levine in there. I'm assuming that's KPRC. And that leaves this other talk station here on top with a deep voice guy here. Fort Smith would be new here. Yeah, KPRC I think is who's running Levine. All right, let's see if what's going on 960 here. Yeah, that WTFDA website, I've heard that the database was down. I don't know if they're doing maintenance on it or if it's just down as it's getting ready for the I don't know. But I did hear it was down. Has anyone gone to the forum to see if anything is posted in the forum about it? Bart wants to know how we aim our loop. So let me mute here for just a second before we get to our top of the hour alert here. So with these Kazs and super loops, you put it up in the air, right? You put your wire up, and whatever direction you're pointing in, you got two directions. One end you're pointing towards, like DX coming from, is going to be wherever you have your amplifier, your feed line. The opposite side is the null side. And you can swap those two. Like, in this case, the Kiwi is 330 degrees on one side north, The other side's 150 degrees, right? So I can swap those. I can put the right now the amps at 330 degrees and the nulls on the back side of the 150. I can move those boxes, so now the amps on the 150 and the nulls on the 330. So that's how these are typically done with most of these like terminator loops that we have, the super loops, CASs, things like that. For like a W6 LVP loop, we have those up in the air. We have rotors for those that we can turn. I have little rotor boxes in here that I can turn those to whatever direction I want to go in. So that's really how it works. And with that, we are doing fire up them sirens, deal. Siren.
Public service announcement brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Bikers against child abuse.
I'm gonna guess that's ERC still, because they are a pesky pest for us here in Louisiana.
Support to our wounded friends by involving them with an established, united organization. We work in conjunction with local and state officials who are already.
I'm really hoping to get some.
Desire to send a clear message to all involved with the abused child that this child is part of our organization.
I'm gonna get something else here on 960 this week.
And emotional support to them by affiliation and our physical.
I've got other stuff. I got Lafayette here. We've got Shenandoah, Iowa, St. Angelo, Texas, Cape Girardeau, Albany, Georgia, JYZ. That's all made it in here.
If you'd like to know more about Baca, please visit our website.
But I'd like to get some stuff out west on this new antenna. No, I've got a switch over here. It's got a cigarette lighter adapter to an Anderson power pole, and I've got a little Anderson power pole power strip over here that I flip it in my remote for my other lights. I want to figure out a way to run all that through my Stream Deck so I can punch the buttons and hit all that, but that's more complicated than I'm currently set up for. Maybe I can make that part of my remodel this year. .970's opening up. Nice, Rick. I would imagine that Fox Sports is probably the ticket out of Arkansas, KNEA. At least given what I've heard here previously. Yeah, what Barry just said. So if you're looking at that W6 LVP loop, I thought I had a little something I could use as a demonstration. I can't do that. So this is my W6 LVP loop. This is pretend. This is a Turk. Well, let's just pretend this is my loop antenna. Signals are coming in here and here, bidirectionally. And it's a cardioid pattern basically on both sides. So let's just pretend I'm turning this, and now let's say this direction is north and this direction is south. Then my signals will be coming in predominantly north and south. Things to the east and west would be nulled, in theory. Now you can have some, these aren't like super narrow beam widths, so it's not like I'm like only looking at 0 degrees and only looking at 180 degrees. It's going to have some pull on each side, but predominantly when I'm looking at these loops like that, whatever direction it's turned in long-wise along this length of this loop here, this is north, this is south, so my directions are coming in, my stations are coming in those directions. If I turn it, now they're coming in east, or west and east, right? If I turn it again, now they're coming in south and north, right? So really, there's only a couple of directions you really need to turn it because it's bidirectional, you're getting on both sides on the regular like W6 LVP or U loop or whatever. So this is how basically when you turn it, you're turning it long ways like this towards the direction you want to either hear or to put a station you don't want or noise in your null path. Like when I'm doing my DX at the hotel rooms, I'm putting the noise on the null side, right? So I'm going to find out where is my null point to get rid of the noise in the hotel room, and that's where I'm DXing now. And I say, okay, now I'm pointing northwest, so I should be hearing from the northwest, right? That's it. That's how it works. All right. No, you get it right, Barry. It's the nulls are off to the side. So as you look down the length of the loop, that's where your signals are coming from on a mag loop, or even like on an air core. We got a Kiwa loop back in the back here that has the same exact thing. Like it's wherever you have that thing pointing to, wherever you're pointing, that's where you're going to be getting your DX from. The sides, the open air piece here, the sides, that's your null. There you go. Wait a minute, I think the Kiwa might be the opposite. I have to look at it's been so long since I've looked at the top of one of those things. I think the Kiwa air core might be the opposite. It might be the perpendicular. I'd have to look at the top of it. Anyway, Kyle says that antenna is great with Tropo, Meteor Scanner, and eSkip. What's the Turk or the W6 LVP? I think probably I imagine the W6 LVP because this Turk is tuned. A little tuning doodad in here for AM. All right. I think that's going to probably, let's go back here real quick though.
You have really good things. Yeah, you can shut cables on down if you are very much of a holy putting somebody on her. So we are going to make use of this on her. You're meeting her at half court. We are following wherever she goes. Stay with her. We'll buy her. We're going to make sure all you have anything Anthony Lumpkins was trying to make you're showing it can be done. Now,
Inflation, a major news publication figured out which group is the most effective.
980, let's check 980.
They'll drew a little sigh.
she could not help doing when she thought of that.
And the 990s are local. I see what you're talking about now. Bill said he picked up a Stellar Labs FM Omni the other day, hoping to connect it to an HF plus D SDR and run FM autologger. We'll see. Kyle says that's a great antenna with tropo meteor and E-skip. Even though it's said to be omnidirectional, rotating it can make a difference. So, it's funny you say that because one of my projects this weekend is I've got a 60 some odd plus foot pine tree in my side of my front yard that I'm going to be putting that up into. I have got one of those Stellar Lab Omnis, and I'm going to put it up into a 60-foot tree because I want to use that for my autologger instead of the. I like my centerfire dipole, but if I can get this Omni up to 60 feet, I'm going to do it. I'm going to absolutely do that and still have the Klitz amplifier at the base so I can amplify because I'm going to have a long feed line. Let's see. Rick says, Bill, is that a Yagi by chance? I picked up a Stellar Labs 4-element Yagi on eBay. USPS wrecked the boom. Oof. When shipping it to the address. Not a happy camper. Yeah, oof. Yeah, that's tough. No, the omnidirectional is not the Yagi. It's just like a folded dipole, basically. It's just a... Here, I'll show you guys the Omni. Stellar Labs. This is the... It's just a folded dipole, basically, is all it is right here with these guys. That's it. So what I basically have done is I've got some rope that I've tied on this side and on this side, and then those meet at an apex right in the middle with a carabiner at the top, and I'm going to clip that to another carabiner that's going to hoist it up into the tree, and it's 60 some odd feet, 65 feet up in the air. That should do well for an autologger, I would think. The centerfire dipole does great right now, but if you can get 60 feet out of an FM antenna, line of sight up top like that, that's going to be, I don't care what antenna you've got, 60 feet in the air is going to do well. So, any idea on the 988.429 yet? No, not yet. That is driving me crazy too, Jacob. Hopefully this week we can work on that together as a team, all of us trying to ID who that station is. I want to say my guess is it's probably Memphis is who I think it was, and if I remember right, now that I think about it, I think I did hear when I went down and on my Kiwi, and it was on the north side. I threw it down into the lower sideband, the synchronous AM lower, and I think that was KWAM, I believe, but I'll double check this week. I'll make sure. All right, so let's do our final round of shout outs, shall we? Let's go ahead and get the old whoop, 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 and this back to the here. We'll do our final round of shout outs here, and then we'll go ahead and do what we did this week. We had some cool stuff, and let you guys go about your business. One more here from Walter this week. Oh, we gotta make sure we do this the right way. You got to do it the right way, Lloyd. All right. So Walter in Albany, Georgia, 950 WORL in Orlando, with News Talk AM 950 and 94.9. The Answer. That's about 298 miles for Walter. So nicely done, my friend. Good catch. Let's get you that horn of victory and some solid logs going down here. Now, I know I'm crazy when I say this, but I feel like sometimes when I play that, it's the same video every time, but I feel like sometimes I notice it bogging down, and sometimes I don't notice it bogging down. Kyle up in the Pacific Northwest in Moses Lake, Washington is where his SDR is located. New logs received on FM included KZID 98.5 in Cul-de-sac, Idaho, due to a local being down. Ooh. That is really nice. And CHVN 95.1 in Winnipeg. Oh my goodness. Oh. That is super nice, man. Well done. Well done. Idaho and Winnipeg. Those are the season's going along. Chainsaw starting to show its use. Yeah, we need to upgrade for this next season. Get a bigger chainsaw because you guys are gonna wear it out with all these logs, man. All right, so that is the shout outs right now. If you didn't get yours in, no worries. You can still submit yours. We'll get you in next week. We'll be ready for you there. We do our first round next week. So go ahead and you can submit those anytime. It's the same form every week. Just keep on submitting those. I will be sending out a season ending shout out submission form. So one that basically gives you a chance to recap the season. When I say the season ending, I mean our season, DX Central season ending, not the AMDX season, right? So we're going to recap whatever we did together as a season here since basically September 1st till May 3rd, right? We'll give you a chance to recap that, remember all the great stuff that we've done together and the time that we've had, and go from there. Let me go ahead and read out ours that we got this week because it was a nice one. I'm going to start you off with the FM because the FM was unexpected and yet exciting. Unexpected, I say unexpected, but I knew we were going to get some Tropo, but I didn't know what we were going to get, obviously, and it was nice. So with that being said, let me just try to get this logbook pulled up. FM logbook, there you go. All right. We did manage to get some new ones this week. Specifically, 2 new ones this week. WLLD Wild 94.1 in Lakeland, Florida, on a nice little southeast path. That was nice. And then the big one, though, we'll go ahead and get the... There we go. Jacob says, put a resistor in that. We don't want that making any QRM. You are so correct. We don't want any noise coming in. The big one on the FM this week, though, for us, we had a nice little Tropo opening, and I probably would have gotten more out of that Tropo opening, but my SDR Sharp just shut itself down in the middle of the night right as things were getting cooking. But we did manage to sneak in there before that happened. 91.7 KOSU in Stillwater, Oklahoma. And guess what, my friends? That is a new FM state. I don't know how Oklahoma eluded me all of last season, but they did, and we finally got him in there, and so I'll take it. That was a big one, because that was a big old gap, a big old hole. Right now, the ones that are taunting me, that was taunting me, Oklahoma. Now the ones that are taunting me is North and South Carolina, South Carolina and Georgia. Those are the 2 holes that are taunting me right now on my FM app, is Georgia and South Carolina. So let's just hope for some nice propagation in those kind of general directions there, but very happy to get Oklahoma on the map colored in. And we go to our AM side of things. It was such a good week on AM. You guys heard me earlier get to be LIB in Canton, Ohio, but in addition to those, you also heard me last week get El Salvador, YSIM in San Miguel, live on air. We got that one thanks to Barry giving me a heads up that we had a match on the live stream. So those 2 you guys knew about, but here's what else we did. WQMV in Waverly, Tennessee. That was the first station that I heard on the northwest or the northern side of that CAS antenna was Tennessee. So it happens, right, off the side of it. But then listen to this run. This is the run that we had after we got the Tennessee station. We went on this 1070 KHMO in Hannibal, Missouri. Yeah, that a lot of you guys were getting that one, so that's not crazy. But here we go. 770 KATL, Miles City, Montana. That's the first time I've heard Montana that wasn't a DX test. I know some of you guys also got KATL further north of me. Sean in Illinois. I think Barry, you were getting them in Tennessee. So some of you guys were getting that Montana station a little bit further north of me, but they hadn't made its way down here. Now we got them. Thanks to that new north side of that antenna. But we're not done. KFBU, Cheyenne, Wyoming. Been looking for them ever since I moved here. Never heard them. The Northern CAS got it taken care of. Then we get 1190 KREB in Bentonville, Arkansas. Red Dirt Radio there, 96.7. We heard them on 1190. That's a new one for us on that northern end of the CAS. And then this is the one that just, it was such a nice moment. Jacob let me know on Slack channel, said, hey man, listen to your Kiwi. You've got this station in there. Go look for them. I hit the record button on the Kiwi, went back later on, listened to it, and sure enough, there was KHAT in Laramie, Wyoming on 1210 coming in, and heard the New Country 96.7 ID. So that's 2 new Wyomings and a new Montana, thanks to the northern side of that Kaz. And we're not done. One last one here, 1310 KOKX in Keokuk, Iowa. Hope I said that right. That one came in yesterday at around 7:10 in the afternoon, right around sunset. So I was able to add a new one from Iowa in there, 2 Wyomings, Arkansas, a new Montana, and a new Missouri, all on the northern antenna. So we're going to say a big hell yeah for that one. Maybe I should add one more state here. I don't want to go overboard and have a video little thingy for every state. That would just be too much. But maybe I should do one for Iowa that's just corn. It's just corn. Just a picture of corn. Just sitting there. Crickets and corn. So thank you, Jacob, for your assist on the KHAT. And appreciate you guys sticking around here with us on DX Central Live. It's always a fun one when we get to share the cool stuff that we get together, and man, you guys have made DXing so fun over the last couple years, but this season especially. I was not sure if I was going to be able to do a live stream this season because of some of the things that were going on, and I didn't even know if I'd be DXing. I didn't know how I'd feel about DXing, but you guys have brought me back to the fold, and it's been a really, really fun season so far. We've got 4 episodes left after tonight. Next week, what are we talking about? We're going to be talking about SDR Console. We're going to be diving deep into SDR Console and some things that you might want to do to get ready for both AM season in the summertime and FM season, especially as we head towards FM season for our FMDXers. That'll be our big thing. And we're also going to be talking a little bit on shack design, some of the stuff that I'm doing to prepare for our remodel here at North Store Studios. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. Some things that you might want to take into account for your own shack. If you're doing some work, maybe some spring cleaning or some summertime remodel, things like that. Anywho, that should do it for tonight's edition of DX Central Live. 950 to 990. That's where you want to go and sit in and see what you can hear. Hopefully some good stuff. We're going to keep that Kaz on the north side for at least a handful of more days before we swap it back down south. Probably, I think we're supposed to have some storms on Tuesday, so I'll probably take the antenna down on Tuesday. Or not the antenna down, but disconnect everything on Tuesday, and then when I go to reconnect it, I'll probably swap it back to the south. So probably somewhere Wednesday, Thursday, or somewhere in there, we'll have a chance to look south on these frequencies and see if we can get anything down in Latin America. But for a couple more days, we're looking north, and seeing what we can find. For our sponsors, our folks at the National Radio Club, for the International Radio Club of America, and for T Publications. My friends, thank you so much for watching DX Central Live. Have a great rest of your night. Great week of DX. We'll talk to you next week right here on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and Twitter. Take care, my friends. 73, best of DX.
This is DX Central Live.